Hello and welcome back to another exciting, stimulating, and, dare I say, intimidating episode of the 10 Ton Talk Show. My name is Clay, and this week we're going to talk about our records of the month. But before we do that, let's meet the rest of our cast.
Hey everybody, what is up? My name is Mitch, otherwise known as Blue Collar Black Metal on all the socials, or BB, if you happen to know me. I am the token Pacific Northwest poser and undercover DIY scene scumbag.
And that leaves me. I am Cosmo, or Brian, if you want to call me either, that's fine. And I listen to way too much music.
I'm going to call you Cosmo forever.
You're stuck with it.
But, Cosmo, having listened to way too much music, you want to walk us through your list of favorite records this year? Nope, month?
Yeah, sure. So, March was a fantastic month for metal, and I have prepared 5 or maybe 6 things that I think that y'all should really check out. So starting from the bottom and we'll go all the way up. Number 5 is a tie between Slime Lords, Chytridium, Mycosis, Relinquished, and Hamfers, and Gluthon der Sturk. Number 4 is Aberration with Refracture. Number 3 is Acathexis with Immerse. Number 2 is Convulsive with Perjurance. And number 1 is Sacrificial Vein with Black Pterogenesis. So they're all great in different ways, and I think at the end of the year, there's a very high chance of seeing Sacrificial Vein, Acathexis, and Convulsing to appear on my top 10 overall list. But you know, let's just keep it moving. So, Clay, how about you?
I have made many a list this month, just to kind of outline how good I thought a whole lot of music was. And I made a couple, and I keep sending them to Cosmo, and I keep lying to him about which ones are actually on top, and I have been terrorizing him slightly for the last few days. But I think one list that I'm going to stick with is going to be Sivarus's Maze Envy, Frail Body's Artificial Banquet, Hamfared, as well with, not going to say that, Convulsing's Perdurance, and my top pick is still the Dread Crew of Oddwood's Rust and Glory. Pirate metal supremacy, baby. It's not even metal, it's pirate folk supremacy, baby. But yeah, Sivarus is, sort of Death Doomy adjacent. This is one that I don't think we've talked about on our show yet. But it's got plenty of chunk heft, and it's came out on $20 spin as well alongside Slime Lord. I think those two albums are both awesome, but I'd give Sivarus the slight nod on my own list. Frail Body is my pick for this week as well. Screamo adjacent, kind of blackened, very impressive release overall. Hamferth we've talked about, Convulsing we've talked about, and the Dread Crew. Nobody wants to hear me hammer on about pirate metal anymore. Pirate folk, gotta stop saying metal. So that's my list. Now I'm gonna go ahead and toss this terrible talking stick over to BB.
Thank you for the terrible talking stick there. My list is have a lot of overlap with the other folks on this wonderful show of ours. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Endless Lost, which I believe is the only one on this that I do not have any overlap with. Endless Lost dropped last week. It's a nice little slab of bestial black metal, kind of war metal, but without the sketch or the boring parts. So it is a win in my book as far as those go. Coming in hot at number 4 is going to be Aberration Refracture. Again, Hell Sounds. It's rad. Check it out. We love to see it. We're here to love it. Number 3, Slime Lord. What's left to be said about Slime Lord? It's great. Definitely an album of the year contender for me. Along with my number 1 and number 2, which are really a number 1 and number 1 for this month. And that's going to be Convulsing Perdurance and Sacrificial Vein Black Pterogenesis. Definitely 2 albums where the bands could share a stage, but the albums don't really have a lot of sonic overlap. Both play somewhat blackened death metal, but in very different ways. And both are fucking rad. We've talked about both of them on the show. Highly recommend. And any of my top 3 are heavy contenders for the album of the year list. Month of March, with the exception of this last Friday, was actually, I think, really strong. But overall, we've just had a really strong year so far. I don't know that I've had a year where by March I have enough albums that I feel like I'm like, yeah, I could put together 10 albums right now that in any other year could go on an end of the year list. What about y'all? How are you feeling about the state of metal as we end our first quarter?
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, last year and especially 2022, there was no way I could have just cobbled together a list of 10 albums that I thought were awesome at the end of fucking March. So, I think at the end of the day, March is just this year especially huge. How about you, Clay?
Yeah, I mean, both January and February, my top albums of those months have a good, strong chance of being on my like year-end list. But this March, all of a sudden, I was like, all of these albums, I could just make a top 10 list and submit it at the end of the year and probably feel pretty solid about it. Surprisingly, but I'm still looking forward to more things, so I'm going to be a greedy little bastard and just gobble up all of that 2024 has to offer.
Hell yeah. It's definitely a good problem to have when you're already this far into the year and there's already so many other good looking releases on the horizon. Like I know for me, Replicant, it's coming out this month. I'm going to lose my shit a little bit. I've been waiting for that record since it came out. Plenty of other high and low profile releases coming out for the rest of the year. It's a good year for metal. I think we're in good shape this year. Yeah, just found out Crypt Sermon is dropping an album come this May, which is super exciting for me, and I don't know about the rest of the show.
And
But yeah,
golf in a couple weeks. That's going to be great. I'm going
hmm
to be super annoying about that one.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think this last month was super strong, with the exception of last Friday, where I was only super into Frail Body out of what came out kind of last week. But Cosmo, I think you had a couple other things that hit last Friday that you wanted to make sure folks knew about.
I did, yeah. So first is Vervoid, Dutch black metal with the Mother. I was a fan of their 2019 release called Deval, and I just sort of forgot about them because 2019 was an eternity ago. But the Mother's really cool. It's this really interesting slab of like very moody black metal that kind of just burrows its way into your brain, and it's a really interesting listen that I think is worth a lot of people's time. Compounding with that is the new album by band Verberus called The Apophatic Wilderness. And the main point that I want to stress about Verberus is that this is another project that features Jamie St. Murat of Ulster fame, and he does a fantastic job here. Now, I will admit I wasn't a huge fan of the last one. Maybe it's because it released when I was already disappointed about black metal in 2022, and I should revisit it. But this new one, very solid. It's 40 minutes, but it's interesting because it's four songs and just feels like one. So it's definitely something that I think you need to just sort of sit with. But if you let it, it'll consume you. It's good stuff.
Yeah, that's one that I actually haven't jammed yet, so I should probably get around to that. Outside of Frail Body that I want to like very much highlight, it made my month end list in a really strong month after just a week because it's such an easy record to put on. It's one of those I'm on a metal show recommending Real Screamo again. But it is good Real Screamo with like some post metal ish, post hardcore ish, black metal ish leanings kind of cooked throughout, with an incredible bass performance and a very upfront and forward bass tone that I think, even if you're on the fence about Screamo in general, you should be able to listen to this record and get something out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to spend more time with it. It definitely has a lot of crossover appeal in that regard. It definitely feels like a record that is not necessarily metallic hardcore or anything like that, but has enough kind of trappings of metal songs in terms of the structure and the approach and the intensity that is not going to be a turnoff for people that normally go for that sort of post-hardcore screamo adjacent stuff, but is also not is going to perk the ears up of people who more primarily are going to be into black metal or other things that kind of brush up against that side from the other side of the fence.
Yeah, I just want to say there's a speed to it that lends itself to a blackened sort of edge, even if it isn't technically a blackened record. The whole thing is very fast, and some of the melody choices that they use and some of the discordant aspects of it really kind of veer it into a very interesting, chaotic, borderline metal experience. But outside of that, the only other one I wanted to highlight, since Beebs doesn't have anything to highlight, is Septage, which is some good, disgusting, filthy grind. If you're into disgusting, filthy grind, give this one a spin.
Yeah, I actually am glad you mentioned Septage, because I kind of forgot about that one, but I spent a little bit of time with that last week, and it's great. It's really cool. If you like gore grind along the similar lines as something like Pharmacist, but a lot meaner and shorter and nastier, but still with that sense of kind of sickening groove and melody that only the best and most delicious of gore grind brings to your operating table. This is going to be it for you. And it's true grind. It's what, 12, 13 minutes?
Yeah, it's not long.
It is short and nasty, and it does the thing that I love that bands do when they exist in this realm, is they basically try to cram as many ideas as possible and as many grooves and weird, gurgly, disgusting bits as possible into those 12 minutes, which makes it infinitely replayable instead of a drag to get through. You finish it and you go, wait, that was it. Oh, man, that was fun as hell. I'm going to put that on again. So, yeah, Septage, great recommendation. I'm glad you brought it up because I'm going to be hitting that one more. It definitely didn't list, but that is a fun piece of nasty work.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, go ahead, Cosmo.
Yeah, I enjoyed Septage. I'm not a huge gore grind enjoyer, but I mean, Septage plus Masako Noho plus Danish and Turkish scene combining together for this nasty international conglomerate. Really solid stuff.
Yep, in a tricky and hard to stand out month, they managed to stand out. That's pretty much it for what I got. I think we listed off a good number of records. It's going to be tricky for me to edit all of those, chop them all up, but I'm going to do my best.
Perfect. But we've talked about a bunch of cool stuff already, and next week we'll be jumping in with some April releases and finally kicking off into our fourth month of the year, fourth month of metal. You can keep seeing us do it here every single week, whether you want to or not. Cosmo, you want to take us home there, bud?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as always, this has been another exciting, intimidating, and, dare I say, scintillating episode of the 10 Ton Talk Show. Take care of yourselves. Stay heavy. We'll see you next time.